All right. So I'm going to go right into just talking about numbers 10 through 15 simply because we did a pretty good job at explaining these up here already. If any students get confused, please go back to your definition chart. So again, I'm not really going to go over that. I want you to use your knowledge that you already gained with me going over numbers 1 through 6 up here and all the definition charts over here to really go through that. I want you to keep in mind that for this line PQ, there is an arrow on one side and there's no arrow on the other. So this will be array. So think about how you can label array properly. And there's actually an array labeled properly over here. So use that to help you. Think about how this is an acute angle RST. Think about the angle that we just labeled up here. And think about the way that this angle over here is labeled. And I want you to think about that. Okay? Also think about how an acute angle looks and how it's less than a right angle. And then notice over here that says straight angle WXZ. And I also want you to keep that in mind for over here. Now, there are actually two lines here that are meeting. There's a line on this side, there's a line on this side, and then there's a point where those two lines are touching. So I want you to keep that in mind and think about, and think about how this will look. How this is the point in the middle. This is where the 2 points are meeting. And I know how it looks up here when two lines are meeting, and this is the point that is in the middle. So now we're going to go down to number 10. You're using figure F over here, and I'm going to take a moment to really understand this a bit. So I see that we already have a right angle, and this would be angle R or angle PRC, because this is where our angle is, and these are the two lines that are meeting in order to make that angle. Point P is on this line, point C is on this line, and then we have R right here in the middle, and that's where our right angle is formed. I'm also seeing, I'm also seeing some line segments. So I'm seeing that there's B, and this is an endpoint, R is an endpoint. This would be a line segment right here. I'm also seeing a line, and this is simply because I know some friends are going to get really confused. Rewatch this if you need to, because this is going to be this really takes, this is more of a grapple for us, friends. This is something that you really have to make sure you are putting your all into and really thinking about. So this would be a line segment because I have a point R, a point B, and notice that there's no arrow over here. There's no arrow over here. And also notice if we keep going, we're going to get to point A before we get to an arrow. Same thing over here. We're going to get to point C before we get to an arrow. So line B, R, this would be a line segment. Now a line would be, so a line would be line J and K, because notice there's a point and then there's an arrow right here. There's also point J, arrow right here. So this will just be a regular line because there are arrows at the ends. If I'm looking for array, I need to see if there's one endpoint or just kind of one point. And then there's another point that has an arrow right next to it. So this will be a really good example of array because I have point R, I have point P. On the other side of point P, there's an arrow. But on the other side of point R, there isn't. I get to point Q before I get to an arrow. So that wouldn't be an array. Now, this would be array here as well. R and Q, this would be array. Because again, I get to point P before I get to an arrow, so this would be considered an endpoint. I'm going to get to Q, and then there's an arrow right here. So this would be array, and this would be array. So I'm going to be going over this as slow as possible. I apologize if this gets cut off into another video. I don't have a lot of space on my phone right now, and I've been clearing it out, but I just don't have the most updated phone at the moment. So I'm going to be going over basically all of these just so you can really have an in-depth understanding of it. So number 10 says name array. And I know when I have array, I'm looking for a point where only one of them is right next to an arrow and another point is not. So I have a few arrays here. I have array A, B. Again, this point's right next to an arrow. This one's not. I could say I have ray BJ because I have the point J right next to an arrow, B is not. And then I also have ray BK. K is right next to an arrow, B is not. You kind of see the pattern. So I'm going to go and I'm going to choose this one right here, ray BK. So let me write that down. So this is number 10. And this is going to be ray BK. Be mindful of how you draw it because